Hi to everybody. I see a lot of messages coming in the chat. So how are you all doing? Good? Yes. So I'm not wasting. So Janelle, shall we go ahead and start, or do you want me to hold on for some more time?
Let's wait for say 30-40 more seconds and like I still see people joining in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how about all of you are like into animation, or is there anybody who's like planning to get into animation? Is it a mixed crowd? I can read your chat though. You can type in. Okay. I can see planning to get in. Yes. Okay, so a lot of people are planning to get into animation. Yes. Planning. Okay, some are students, some still searching for guidance. Yeah, Chandan Kumar planning to get into animation. Some professionals there. Yeah, great. It's a pretty big crowd.
Yeah, we can start, Pratik.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. There's an architect also. Nice. Okay, guys. A very good evening to all of you. So my name is Pratik, and I work currently as an animation supervisor here in Bangalore with Mikros Animation. Today, first of all, let me give a big thanks to XP Pen for giving me this opportunity to share my knowledge with all of you, and also to see maybe I don't know how it's going to end up. Like, also if you guys are fresh to animation, maybe this might be something useful for you guys also. So a big thanks to XP Pen for giving me this opportunity to do a webinar. And today I'll be doing a webinar basically on the fundamentals of animation. So it is more or less targeted to people who are either into animation, who are students in animation, or maybe who are planning to get into animation, to just give a brief idea about what the industry is all about, and maybe a small tips and tricks about the fundamentals of animation. So that is what I'll be looking into today. So about me, i I have an experience of almost 15 years now. I started off my career in 2007, so after my graduation. And uh, I basically I'll let you know how I got into animation first. I think that would be better rather than explaining about my career and all the stuff. So as a child, I used to draw. I was not a big what do you say, artist or anything, sketching a lot or something like that. I was passionate about drawing. I used to sketch a lot, and that basically led me to towards the interest into what do you say, creative side. I wanted to do something creative rather than a conventional course. So that is when I came to know about. That is when I saw this movie Jurassic Park. So that was a big turn, because I think I was in my sixth standard or seventh standard when that movie got released here. So I saw that and I was like blown away with the video, with the visuals in that. So that's kept in that was in my mind for a very long time. These dinosaurs moving around and all those stuff, but I didn't know about how it is done or anything. It's just something that was striking me, and that was in my mind for a long time. So then when I was doing my 10th standard, and after that I had to decide on what I had to go ahead, and what kind of, that's where you make the decisions, right? Whether you're going to do commerce or science. So that's how I literally went into commerce. And then because I wanted to do something creative, so I didn't want to get into the hardships of getting into science, where I was really bad at science and all this stuff. So I took up commerce. And then I one day I saw a small video in TV. That was somewhere in 99 2000. about a studio in Trivandrum called Toons Animation. So they had tied up with a television channel, and they came up with a small, what do you say, a small session where they were taking some children onto the studio, and they were showing stuffs, how animation is done. So that is my first exposure to animation. So that's when I decided this is something that I really want to try out. And then I started inquiring about various courses that are available, and then ended up with one of the best suggestions that I came up was National Institute of Design, where you can they had specific courses for animation. But unfortunately, I didn't get through. It is a very tough exam, so I did try for it, but I didn't get through. And again, I have to wait for an year for the next entrance exam that is going to come in. So then I didn't want to waste time waiting for that. But anyway, I decided I want to get into animation. So that's how then I started looking for, and ended up with a graduation course. After my 12th, I ended up with a graduation, um, which was visual communication. Before that, I tried BFA, Bachelor of Fine Arts, which was considered to be one of the most closest graduation that you can do to get into the animation industry. But there were other options also. Again, I didn't get into any fine arts college at that time because I was not so excellent in drawing, but I did have the taste towards it, but not so excellent. So I ended up with a course called Visual Communication, which I did in a play in Tamil Nadu, Coimbatore. I did a course in Coimbatore for visual communication. So this course is what really changed my life. When I came into the industry, I could understand how much help it gave me in understanding this whole concept. So I did visual communication, where I understood the whole. I was introduced to this medium called video, how video production is done, and animation is a part of it. But as a whole, I could understand how the different mediums to communicate. How do you communicate with an audience? That is something that I learned through this graduation. And from there, I did a diploma in animation from Toons Animation Academy, because Toons was, as you know, Toons was something that's actually brought me into animation. That video that I saw in my 10th, 11th standard is what actually made me decide that I want to pursue this as a career. And and I landed in Toons Animation Academy in Trivandrum, and I did the technical certification for animation from them, and then started my career with Toons Animation India, which is in Trivandrum. So that was my first job, and this happened in 2007. So from 2007, now it is 2023, I have been working with different studios, and I have had the what do you say, I was lucky enough to work in different styles of shows, and currently working with Mikros and different features that they are producing. And it's been a great journey, and especially the last 5 years with Mikros has been amazing, because it's been a place where a lot of opportunity has been given to me to explore uh, about animation and different styles of animation. And right now, an all-time dream that working in a feature is, any animator who's there in this webinar right now would say that what would be there to work in a feature, to get the name on the screen in the credits, last credits. So that is something that I'm realizing right now, and the last couple of years. So that is a brief journey of about how I got into animation and my 15 years of experience. And in these 15 years, I have worked with Toons. I have worked with the studio in Delhi, and I had worked as a mentor for almost a year and a half. I have then switched to DQ Entertainment in Hyderabad. Then from there, I moved to Cochin with dreams of starting a studio. We started a studio, but didn't work out and all the stuff. And then again came back to animation. And so there was a lot of journey in this 15 years, through which I was able to learn quite a lot of things, creatively, technically, management wise, how animation is executed, how studio, in a studio level, how does it work. And so all these learnings has helped me to become a better animator, as well as whatever role I'm working as an animation supervisor. My job would be basically to look at animation to ensure that it is being delivered in the right quality as per the client requirement. And all those things has been a big addition to all those journey that I had and all those small success and failures that I had faced. So that is a brief idea about what uh, I was doing for the last 15 years. So from here, I think let's not waste much time, and we'll jump into the main thing topic that is fundamentals of animation. So just give me a minute. I'll just share my screen. Yeah. So just let me know if you're able to see my screen.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. And from there, let me start presenting. Yes, can you guys see?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So yes, fundamentals of animation. Uh, this is yeah, it's already fundamentals of animation as mentioned. It's there, but the topics that we are going to cover over here, animation is there. We are going to be discussing about technical aspects of it, but it is more I'll be talking about what animation is and all those stuff. So more or less the topics that we are planning to cover today, that I'm planning to cover today, is basically these 7 topics. So first would be always what is animation. I'll be talking about what animation is. Very simple. Most of you guys know this. I don't want to keep repeating it again or technically explain this. And animation and film industry, that one topic is something that I really want to connect, because it's some nowadays it is more different, but something that I experienced when I was growing as an animator, what I used to hear from people around me, and also that's one topic, very interesting thing that I want to discuss with you guys. Then there is the production workflow. How does production work in animation? How what all stages are there, and where I am placed in the industry. So there are a lot of people involved. It's just not one person actually doing it. It's a collaboration of artists. It's a collaboration of different departments. So how does that departments connect with each other? So that is something that I'll be touching. Then types of animation. What are the different types of animation that you have? And so each of these types has its own importance. So I'll be discussing on that. And then principles of animation. This is purely for animators. So who really want to get into the uh, process called animation. That I'll get to that point when I'm discussing animation. What is animation? And then a little about career insights. Career insights. How you can get into this industry. What does this industry have to offer you? And how do you grow in this industry? Uh, to what do you say, to develop yourself on a daily basis. How do you develop and all those stuff? So basically career related thing. And the last one is the Q&A. So that's where you guys can start putting in your questions and stuff. And doesn't mean that I'm not going to be asking you anything in between. It's going to be more interactive. I don't want to be like a very professional session where it's all me talking. And so I'll be connecting with you guys in between, trying to get to know how you guys are feeling about what is going, how the sessions are going. Okay, so the Q&A, you can post your questions, whatever is whatever questions you have, you can post, and I'll try to answer it to best of my knowledge. Okay, so first thing is, what is animation? So I don't want to give you a very technical definition of animation. So, and disclaimer is that all the content that you're going to see right now is I have sourced it out of the public domain for understanding. That is one main thing. And also I don't want to give you more technically into it. I'll be more talking about whatever I experienced as an animator, and that's what I want to share with you guys. Although there are a lot of sites where you get to with definitions and all the stuff, I'm talking from a more perspective, more artistic perspective, from how I understood what I understood out of this industry. Okay, so animation basically means to invoke life. Okay, and not to imitate it. That's the main thing. So we are not imitating anything here. We are not copying anything. It's just that we are adding life to something that doesn't have a life. So that is what Chuck Jones is a very famous creator, and his this is something that I always believe in. What animation is about. That's what it's about, invoking life into any character. It could be a character, it could be a prop or anything. It can just move and it starts telling you a story. Okay, so if you technically talk about animation, it is just a process of displaying a sequence of images. Okay, and that creates an illusion of movement. Okay, it's just moving some images, static images, you're moving it through time, and it creates an illusion of movement. So if you ask me, is that the only way what animation is? No, because this display of sequence, static image sequence, static images being played in a sequence is actually the foundation of film also. So uh, basically a movement, any anime, not animation, let me talk about movement. Any movement is basically considered to be 24 images in 1 second, right? So there are 24 individual photographs. So you are taking a photograph, and nowadays you have sequence photography in your mobile phones also. You can say randomly, you can take photographs like 10, 15 photographs together. Now, if you take the 10, 15 photographs and play it, what happens is you see a small movement in it, right? So that is exactly what is happening in animation also. So we are just playing a sequence of images, and on a standard video, this thing, what happens is your eyes are trained to actually see a movement when it plays at 24 images per second. So in a second, if there is 24 images that is moving, that starts to give an impression of movement in your visual. That is your ability as a human being, and that ability is what we are exploiting in film, animation, and any other media that is showing you movement. Okay, so from this, let me go to the thing, animation industry and the film industry. So this is something that I really wanted to, although nowadays it is a lot different. It is open, the content, amount of content you have on the internet, and the exposure you have through these OTT platforms to different movies and all more. But when I started off my journey as an animator back in 2007, although 2007 is not so long ago, it is just 15 years back, considering to when animation was introduced to us. What happened is a lot of people, especially in India, didn't know about what this industry is more about. It's everybody used to say animation, but not much of them know what this industry, and there is a career being built in this industry. Although we had a lot of institutes teaching animation, but how do you build a career out of this, and whether it is going to be a successful career? So there are a lot of questions when I was planning to opt this as my career choice. Lots of people were commenting, do you really want to do that? Do you really think it is going to be a thing? So a lot of questions, but I always trusted my instincts that I wanted to do something which is very which I like the most, and I've been doing it for the last 15 years without any regret. So that was the decision that I made. So, and one major thing about animation is that at that point of time, we were at the point where 2D transitioning to 3D in India. A lot of 3D studios were coming up, and 2D animation was transitioning slowly to 3D. So we were all working in IT parks. Any animation studio would be in an IT park, and we'll be working with computers. So a lot of people used to connect it with the IT industry, and they used to say that we are IT professionals. So that was something that I feel was very wrong, because we are really creative professionals, and we are equally working in the same amount of intensity on communicating or communicating our ideas through this medium, just like how a film industry works. So animation industry is very much connected to the film. A lot of concepts that we do in this industry, especially right from the creative point, creative point, as well as to the last point where we are coming out with our content, is connected a lot with the film industry. So that we are going to see in the next set of slides. So right now, animation industry, today's world, animation industry and film industry works almost close to each other. So there's lots of amazing movies and videos coming out with the collaboration with the animation and through VFX and all those stuff. So uh, you when when you're going to get into the animation industry, you're a person who's almost like going to be working close to how a film technicians work. So I basically am a technical person in the animation industry. So there are a lot of, I'm the technical part. So my job as an animator is highly connected to how actors work in the film industry. So I give life to characters, I make them move, I tell the story through their emotions. So my job is basically connected to how actors work in the film industry. So all necessary qualities that an actor has needs to be there within an animator, so that I can tell the story. I can make the audience feel for the character, just like how you, when you watch a movie, you feel for it. You get emotional when there is an emotional scene. You get happy when there is something happy. When your adrenaline rises when there is an action scene. So all these things is the same when you do animation also. But only thing is that you are not the person in front of the camera. It is your character that is going to speak through your actions or your work. So our industry is animation industry is highly connected with the film industry. So the next one is, I wanted to show you how basically I'm sorry, before I jump into this video, I just wanted to show you how film is being earlier I told you about this 24 frames per second, right? 24 images per second. So this is a small example of that. This is just a couple of photographs, that sequence photographs. Just have a look at this. I'm sorry, I'm not able to share the sound for some reason. But anyway, it's just a background music. You can see them placing these images one after the other. And all these images are being taken within fraction of like seconds. So fraction of milliseconds actually. So when all these images are being placed one on top of the other, you can see that illusion of movement that is being created. So this is the same principle that is being applied into animation. 24 frames. We do 24 drawings. If it is 2D, we used to do 12 drawings in a second. So that 1 second, these many images are being played, and that creates the illusion of movement. Okay. So this I wanted to show you because how animation and film is highly connected. The underlying concept of movement is basically connected to your eyes, the way your human body perceives images or perceives motion. That is how it is, and that is the same concept that is being put into film through the film camera. It is all done at a single strike. In animation, we are individually making these images frame by frame and then creating it into a moment. Okay, so next I want to discuss about is it clear till now? If there is anybody who's, if am I going too fast, just let me know. Yes, thank you. Now, the next thing I wanted to show you is workflow of a film production before I get into animation. Up to the next couple of one more slide, I'm going to be connecting a lot with film. So if you look at this workflow of just a minute, yeah, workflow of a film production. Any film or video that you make, you guys might be, nowadays everybody can make a film, right? Everybody has the freedom of making content, and it is easily accessible right from a mobile phone. You can do that. So you all know that it all starts with an idea, and then from idea it goes to treatment is basically how you want to build that idea, which what kind of a video are you gonna make, how are you going to treat it. That's the main thing. And from there it goes to script, then to storyboards basically defining. Script is basically telling you the whole story written format of it, and storyboards are basically going to give you a basic idea of how this whole feature video is gonna come in. It could be thumbnails and all the stuff. And then from there, from the script, the different characters are decided. Then the casting happens. From casting, the crew is decided. locations are decided where you're going to shoot it, then the filming starts. Along with the filming, you have lighting and all those stuff, the camera, lights, the actors, all together, director, all together collaboratively work. Sound recording happens. From there it goes to editing, then visual effects. If any effects are there, we add visual effects on top of it. Then the music is done, and then the final movie is coming out. So all this is the basic workflow how a film is being made. Any film, if even if you're going to do it at your home, this would be the basic idea of how it is going to go. Like even if it's a big time production, or even if it's a home amateur production, it's just how it basically flows. So based on this, we have three stages. That's called pre-production, production, and post-production. Okay. So pre-production basically is where your idea till your casting and crew and location sourcing, that is all done, is called pre-production. From there, the production starts where the actual idea is executed, right? That is where the production comes. And from there, once the whole idea is the shooting and everything is done, it goes to the editing, visual effects, and the final movie that goes to post production. Okay, so these are the three major stages in the workflow of a film production. So now I'm going to show you the next slide, which again, this what I'm showing you is a 3D production pipeline, but it is similar to even in 2D or any other mediums that we are going to see. The overall ground rule of how we make a production is going to be the same. So in 3D also we have three stages: pre-production, production, post-production. If you see, it starts off with an idea, and from the idea the story is being told to people, then it goes to storyboard. We have something called an animatic. These are all more technical, I don't want to dive deep into those things, but from a storyboard it goes to an animatic, which is basically a video representation of these storyboards. That for animators, that is the basic bible of any show. Okay, and then from animatic, then the character designs are done. Then we get into production. That is where actually in film you start your actors start doing the performances, and the lighting and all the stuff work together. So there everything is working together to, because it's a real-time production. All these departments, all these people are going to work together to come out with the product. But in 3D, what happens is, there we have different departments. So there's going to be a modeling department, a texturing department, rigging, layout, then animation, VFX, and then lighting, and then rendering. Okay, so if you see, VFX comes before the final render or the post-production starts in our 3D pipeline. So basically modeling is where you're going to be creating these characters. So it's just like how you sculpt, right? How you sculpt, you will be creating whatever designs have been done. You cannot here everything has to be done right from scratch. So through modeling, you will be basically creating these characters in 3D space. And then from there, it goes to the next department, which is the texturing and rigging. So texturing is basically, as the name says, it's going to be, these characters are going to be just gray in color, right? So we are going to add textures on top of it. So it just gives the character its overall feel, look and feel to, if there are eyebrows, how the eyebrows are going to be there. There are skin textures, or maybe if it is a small rock, how the rock is going to be, either it's going to be black in color or brown in color. So all these, so that's where the texturing comes a lot. And then the rigging are the people who create the puppets. So all these things we'll discuss detail while we are going in to the types of animation I'll touch on. So the rigging people will basically give a setup puppets so that we can move things around. And then animation, we give life to the characters. Then the VFX, adding all the dust and all the stuff. Then lighting is not done during animation, while as in a film it is done on set while the shoot is happening. Here lighting is done after the animation is done, so that they create the overall tone of the show, whether it is happening in a day or in a night, or is there any specific lighting coming into that. And then all these are rendered into images, like 24 fps, 24 frames per second. It's exported into individual images, each second comprising of 24 frames. And that is then going into compositing and going to compositing. From there, it goes into motion graphics, then color correction, and final output. Okay, so these are the major process that way. So if you look at this, it's nothing much different from what you see about film production. It's all the concepts are the same. It is just the medium that is changing, or the approach to how we are creating that is changing. Okay, so me as an animator come into the department which is over here. I just work in this particular area called animation. Okay, inside this whole pipeline there are so many departments and so many artists who are working. So any video product or any animation that you're going to see, any movie that you have seen, is a collaboration of so many people working together, and so many creative people together sitting and working to get a final out. Okay, so me as an animator, I come into a very small section out of this big entire big map of how a production works. Okay, so yes, clear till now? Great, great to know. And is it boring? You guys are feeling sleepy, or do you want me to say it? Great, 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 great. Thank you, thank you. So from here, let me get you guys into the next topic, that is types of animation. Okay. So types of animation, you go search the net, you will have n number of videos explaining about what different types of animations are there. So I there are people who say there are 5 types. There are people who say there are 6. There are some say there are 3 types. So it's all subjective. So for me, what I understood from people with whom I worked and knowledge that I have gained, what I understand about animation is basically two. Animation is basically 2 types, and be it anything, like any kind. One is traditional and one is digital. The biggest change that happened in animation was the introduction of the digital, that is the computers. So the moment the digital started coming into this industry, uh, there were a lot of opportunities that started to come up. So there was animation. The first animations were done during 1900s and all this stuff. That's even at that time there was animation. So there is traditional and there is digital. These are the major 2 types of animation. Under this, there are different types that we approach. How do you approach animation? That is different. What kind of animation you're doing, that is different. But the major 2 types that we can talk about is traditional and digital. So if you look at traditional, so traditional is basically, there are 2 types of traditional. One is traditional 2D and one is traditional 3D. So we have basically two mediums right now. One is a 2D medium and the 3D medium. So 2D is basically a flat surface onto which you're going to be projecting a flat surface where you don't see the depth so much. But in 3D, you feel the depth. So these are the major 2 dimensions that we have. So even if you look at traditional, we have traditional 2D and traditional 3D. Okay. So in traditional 2D, we have something called celluloid animation, or whatever you called as 2D animation, right? It's called hand-drawn animation. So this was the first, I won't say the very first form of animation, but this was the earliest form of animation. How they started interpreting these movements, like how a small drawing can be manipulated by keeping different images, how it starts. So that is how traditional 2D started. And we have traditional 3D, which is basically stop motion. Stop motion is basically where you are gonna be using, either you have options like clay animation, cutout animation, silhouette animation, pixelation, using action figures. There are different props that you can use to create stop motion, but the medium basically says that you're gonna use a actual live regular camera to shoot this, and you're gonna use stuffs that are available with you. Maybe it could be a puppet, and you'll be moving the puppet frame by frame. You'll move it, like you'll keep the puppet here, take a snap, move it a little, take a snap, move it a little. So like that, 24 images. Once you do the photography of 24 images, it automatically turns into animation. So that is how stop motion is done. What you're going to use to do stop motion is a different thing. That's something we'll go in detail, but that is one basic thing about traditional 3D animation. Okay, so the next slide that I'm going to show you is basically, I'm sorry you don't have the audio, but you just see this. I'll be talking in between. This is a video of different celluloid animations that you have seen, hand-drawn animation. These are all movies that you have already seen. So this is the famous Lion King intro. so most amazing thing is that these are all hand drawn. All these movements that you see, all these things are actually somebody has sat and drawn them, like 24 drawings or 12 drawing in 2D. Basically we use 12 drawings rather than 24 to keep it more feasible to work for to be made. But if you need a very smooth action, you go for 24 drawings, so it will be very smooth to your eyes. So this is Snow White, one of the first animated feature, full-fledged feature. And it doesn't end with just drawing this. It's actually started off with people actually coloring it also. That each and every individual drawing had to be colored, hand colored, and keeping that consistency all through that is a very tough job. And that's why this is always, what do you say? This 2D animation is always like. It's like our old school camera, right? Today we have a lot of Canon, Nikon digital cameras. You have your Apple phones, Android phones, which has all these amazing. But still, if you ask people who have actually used an old film camera, they would always say that the happiness that you used to get with working that with that is different from what you have in the digital. So that is same thing in this also. Like if you ask an animator who has, I haven't worked as a traditional animator, to be clear. I've been completely in 3D animation, but I learned traditional animation when I was doing my course in animation. So although it is a very, it's very tough to master. It takes a lot of time to master, and you need to know, you need to be really good at your drawing and your ability to retain consistency of these drawings. Okay, so that is very important. So if you ask anybody 2D animation, they would always love how there are still animators who do that. There are still animators who do that. At least maybe there are movies coming in, but still there are animators who pursue to do animation. So in this, before going into digital 2D, this traditional 2D itself, as the time, if you look at Snow White and all those movies, you had Snow White here. I'd shown you a small video clip of Snow White. So here, these were all hand painted also. So after the introduction of digital, what happened is some of these tasks started moving off into computer so that it is more faster, because painting each of these frames, including the backgrounds, is very difficult, and you have to make sure that it is consistent, the colors are consistent. So once the digital started, some of these out of the traditional 2D animation, so some of these departments, like there is something called inking and painting. Basically they fill they paint all these characters, the colors and all this started slowly moving into digital so that it is more comfortable. The next video that you're going to watch is about how 2D animation actually is done. I know most of you guys might be knowing, but still it's fun to watch these things. It's always an inspiration. So you see this so Aaron Blake, the animator who's working on this shot. So he's an amazing guy, amazing animator. So he's working on this on something called a light box. So if people who are right now learning animation, I'm not sure whether you guys have access to things like these things, because I don't know whether you will find it nowadays. But I luckily I was at the transition stage. So when I was doing my training, I was able to actually work on something called this light box. So this is basically a glass kept on top. There is a disc. You see this black thing. It's a disc, and this small metal dots are called peg bars, onto which you keep the papers. So papers will have small holes. So you keep it on top of it and you draw. And this thing is whole. You can rotate it completely, and there is a bulb underneath. So basically, it is you're turning on the light, and then you keep the first drawing, you draw that, then the second drawing, then you flip and see how the animation works. So in this medium, that's biggest thing, like like I told you about the film camera, you never know how the photograph is gonna come until it gets what do you say, you process it and you get it right. The same way in, this also, as an animator is drawing, you're not able to know how it is going to turn up. So that is a level of suspense that is had, and that suspense is sometimes really thrilling also. Oops, sorry. So here you can see that he's drawing these yeah, and he's flipping to have a look how he's making this movement of the shoulder over here. So he's flipping and seeing how that shoulder movement, is it playing for you guys? Yeah. Yeah, okay. So he's flipping the images after drawing and just making sure that the overall weight shift from this leg to this leg is happening. These are some examples of 2D, and this is 2D animation, completed animation. Sorry. These are all hand drawn. Yeah. So before I start off with this is a 2D animation. This is from some movie called Princess and the Frog. So here you can see that there is a lot of updates from whatever we saw earlier, like in Snow White and stuff. So some of these what do you say, the backgrounds and all those things started moving into digital. So once the computer was introduced, and then the way they color the characters all has become, so you can see the texture change in it a little bit from whatever the regular 2D Snow White you have seen and to what you are seeing right now. So it started evolving, and 2D started adapting things from digital also a little bit, taking help from digital to speed up things and create more stunning visuals. So each of these small minute details about flow reflections, shadows, all these things are added layer after layer, and all these layer together is what creates the final image. So this is an example of how yeah. So this one is an example of how, I'll just play this slide again. For some reason, it is playing at a different speed at my level. Sorry, guys. Was done basically how the production works. Just have a look at this. So they are taking these individual, like I told you, right? Everything is in a different layer. So they're keeping different layers on top of each other, and they are basically moving the BG. Now, right now, there's Mickey Mouse actually walking. So there are different drawings on it. So they are keeping it one by one. And each time they are keeping and closing the glass, they are taking a photograph. That's what happens. They're taking a photograph. It could be 2 frames or 1 frame, whatever it is. And then you can see that the BG, the background was being moved. Each time he's taking a click over here, he's going to keep the image. Oh, shit. He's moving the image there. So what happens is the background is moved. It's a very big background. So background is moved. The character is walking at the same place. But after the whole video is shot, this is how it looks. So that's the illusion that it creates. Okay. Similarly, when you see complex, this is a complex mechanism where this is how they used to do animation. That's the biggest thing is you see the size of this machine. So this is where they had made this machine. Basically, it's called multi-pan camera. So multi-panel camera. So basically what happens is that when there is a long shot that in 2D you want to zoom into a particular thing and you have a moon in it. We have an example like that right now. When you have a flat image, single image, and you zoom in, what happens? The moon also zooms up, right? So based on the distance, you won't feel the depth. So they wanted to create depth in it. So they've created these different layers so that each of these layers has drawings which based on the depth of that object in the screen. And they adjust these things individually. And in fact, it's not lined up like this. The camera over here is actually vertical and it's set up vertical and all the drawings are on, and it is done on glass canvas panels, and they have the drawings on it. And that is how. So you have the camera on top. You can see that the things that are closer to the camera has a different moment. Things that are far away is more, the size is more retained. So that is taken through this mechanism. So this is a basic idea of how 2D animation used to be done in the earlier stages. Okay. So that is about basically about celluloid animation. So hand drawn, and the effort that has gone into this is immense, and the learnings, and this is basically through this only whatever we do animation today, also the basic foundation of it. By from now on, I'll be talking about animation as just a department. Okay, not as a whole industry. Animation as a department. I'm going to be talking about movement. That's it. So this was how whatever you see today, whatever even today when I'm doing animation today, this was done like in the 1900s, and today in the 2023 when I'm doing animation, I still follow this basic principles. The foundation is always the same. It is just that it has evolved, that's it, but still the foundation is the same. So the same concepts, the same thing, it's just that the medium that we are using or the style that we am doing, it might be different, but the whole overall concept of how this thing is made is still the same. Okay, so you're clear about 2D? Is there anything that you want to? Yes, cool. So the next major thing that we are discussing is traditional 3D, right? Stop motion. So this video that you're gonna see here is you're gonna see here is basically, I'm just minimizing. I'm getting distracted with the chat coming up, but anyway, I'll just. So what you're gonna see right now is stop motion. Okay, so like traditional 3D. Why I call it traditional 3D is basically this is in a 3D space. This was one of the videos that this was the output that where you could actually feel something in a 3D shape rather than whatever you saw in the traditional 2D. So that's why I would like to call this as a traditional 3D, which is stop motion. Okay, stop motion itself has a lot of topics, like I already said. Let's see a small video of different types of stop motion. Just let me know if the videos are too long or if it is too boring. Okay. I'm not making it full screen, guys. I hope it's okay. So this is a famous movie that came out now. It got the Academy Award also. It's called Pinocchio. Okay, that is also a stop motion. So before I get into this particular this video, let me. So what you see over here right now is actually claymation. Okay, so this again, we are using puppets here. There are puppets being used to simulate the movement, but each of these movement, whatever you see right now is actually is individual small photographs are taken, and the puppet is moved. Like you just hold a puppet and you move it a little bit and then take another photograph, then move, take another photograph. So that's all. So the puppets that are used in this are basically made out of clay. Okay, so that's why it's called a claymation, but it's basically nowadays we have silicon puppets coming up. What you see next is going to be that. So this is a silicon puppet. So here clay is more difficult to handle, so silicon is more stable. So they make the clay puppets and then they convert it to silicon, cast it and create silicon puppets, and then they use that for animation. So this again is a puppet driven stop motion. Okay, and the quality of stop motion has gone up like anything. You cannot even nowadays, it's very difficult to even say that it's stop motion. It's so fluid and it takes so much time to make. Yeah, so this is very interesting. This you might have seen in a lot of advertisements and small videos and stuff. So this is something called pixelation. So here we don't use puppets or anything, rather we use real characters either on a flat screen. We take photographs from a top angle, and then when you play them, you start telling a story. This is another form where they're using pixelation. Again, these are all individual photographs. So that illusion that you see right now is individual photographs combined together. This one is basically made through action figures, all your toys or Lego toys and all this stuff. Through that, again, the concept is the same. You make photographs, but use the action figures to do it. So the rope is basically a drawing. Okay. And this is something called cutout animation. So you make paper cutouts and you keep it on a flat surface, or maybe you can make 3D cutouts also, 3D paper thing, and you can place it again, use a real camera to use it. Nothing, there's no digital in it except for the fact that we are going to shoot with a camera, and later it is imported and maybe into a computer, and but other than the whole animation process is done physically. These are all paper cutouts that they are using here. And so this is what I was talking about. These are 3D, small 3D boxes that they're using. These characters are walking and getting in. So this is more used in a 3D space rather than a flat surface. These are highly used in explanation videos, sometimes small, what do you say? Advertisements also use it, this media. So more stylized. This one is a silhouette animation. So it's more like there is no colors onto it. It's more about dark and light. That's it. So, but the fundamental principle of animating is the same. Capturing the image. Yeah. So from here, I'll quickly take you guys. We lost some time with this technical issue. So I'm taking you guys to the process of how a stop motion is done. This again is a really amazing thing you guys are going to see. So you see, this is from Pinocchio. You see, each time the hand is coming, there's a pose being set and there is a photograph taken. And that photograph, when it plays as a sequence, is where you see. These are the molds. That's a phase actually. And it has small joints here. It has evolved. Okay, it started with very basic rigs. Today's rigs are more or less, you can move things around a lot. The animator, this animator basically sitting there who's not working on a computer, is just posing these things by hand. So there are different rig setups to hold these things, and whatever you see in the background, the green screen is basically a mat. That is what it's shot on front of that, so that they can clean this character out and then place it into the actual place. That's how like a VFX movie works. And you can see the camera on the opposite, like you saw that camera moving on the opposite. I'll show you, there are more examples coming. The bird is flying. He's using this rig. So these are all connected into different metal stands and stuff so that it can hold on to place. Oh, sorry, this somehow got in. It's nothing to do with stop motion bug. Yeah. So you see the guy coming and doing it. A shot might take around a month to animate. If you see that first shot that we, I'll get back to that. This shot that we saw, right? This monkey going in. So this particular shot, it took around, I think 2 months for the animator to set it. It's around 10 seconds or 8 seconds something. It took around 2 months for the animator to actually build it. Yeah. You can see the camera. You can see the camera on the screen, right? Coming in, and the animator coming in and taking the, you see the computer over there. Each image is being captured there. Metal frame is holding, and yeah. So this one is the cutout animation I was talking about. So this is basically on a flat surface. He's using a camera, and then frame by frame is going to be taking a photograph, like I told us earlier. So he's using a DSLR, and he's changing the object based on the poses. Each pose is drawn out. In cutout, every single pose is drawn out and the poses are just flipped. There's so many choices. So he'll be taking based on the animation, he'll be putting it there. Yeah. So this is about stop motion. In stop motion itself, like there are around five types of stop motions that are widely used. And today, mostly we can see in film, animation films and videos, we use the first one that we saw using the puppets, rig puppets. Cutout and all these still cutout animation and silhouette animation is very rare nowadays. But cutout animation is still used in some creative videos that you can see. But every single style of stop motion that you have seen has its own difficulty, and it's each one of them is very hard to achieve. Okay, I'm sorry, I got into a lot of technical when I was showing these things. Is it clear? Okay, cool. The next type that I want to discuss is about digital. So this is where we all come in. What we basically are into. So in digital also we have 2D and 3D, right? So in digital, 2D is something that we computer generated 2D animation that we see, like we use Flash, famous Adobe and Flash, then Adobe Animate. Nowadays it's Adobe Animate. Then we have Toon Boom, these softwares that we use. So it's basically the concept that we were doing. The understanding of animation is the same. It's just that we are utilizing that into a different medium, which is in a computer, and we are using softwares to basically do it. So in digital, you have a small video here. I'll quickly skip through this. It's so these are basically done in a digital 2D software. And you can see it's more limited. The animation is more limited, not as fluid as what you have seen in the early traditional animation. We do have digital animation, which is, it doesn't mean that it is not smooth. The ones that I'm trying to show you right now is more or less limited animation, which is where widely it is used. We had a movie called Klaus that recently, like 2 years back, I think it got released. So that is highly used digital 2D, but still it is almost, it is a traditional animation, hand-drawn animation, but in a on a software. They have hand-drawn it on a software rather than paper. So that also, we have a lot of facilities now, a lot of equipments are available, which can be used to actually create these drawings directly onto a computer screen. Okay. And the next one again is a making. So here again, like we said, we have the same process that flows. And the biggest thing about digital 2D is that in Flash, we have something just similar to a 3D where we were talking about how you make puppets, right? Rigs and all those stuff. There are options where you can add rig onto a drawing so that the number of drawings that you need to do or is comes down, and you can use these rigs to actually manipulate how things move, how the leg rotates and all those stuff. If you see here, they are using basically joint setups also are there where which can be used to actually manipulate the character. So that saves a lot of time. Also, it gives a different style of animation, different feel to that output that you see. So this is basically done on the software. Yeah, so here you can see that on the spine, on the spine, you can see different pointers that have been kept, and these pointers can be rotated, and then you can move things around, place things around, and then so you don't have to draw every single thing. So that helps in saving time a lot. It's all about saving time, and also it's an entirely different approach to this thing. So, but digital 2D doesn't mean that it is always limited. There are really there are shows which are really amazing in digital 2D also, which has really fluid animation, hand-drawn animation that is directly onto the computer, onto a software. Okay. So from here, I would like to take you guys onto something just digital 3D, and which is the most widely used medium right now in India. A lot of studios, whatever you guys are doing right now, is also be connected to this. I basically belong to this segment, digital 3D. So here the 3D object is basically just like what you saw in stop motion. It is in a physical space. Here it is in a virtual space. That's the only thing. And you have a 3D overall. The depth of a character is can be done, and that is what we use to create animations rather than just drawings. We use, and but it's still, there are puppets. These are also puppets. These are the rigs in them, controls in them. These control points are what we use, and we move them around to basically, you'll see that in the next video. So Toy Story, one of the first full-fledged 3D animated movie. This from Tangled is an amazing animation. I'll just jump a little bit. So I just wanted to basically is that in 3D itself, it's not only that we completely do it full-fledged 3D movies alone. So this one that I'm showing right here is from the movie Alvin and the Chipmunks. So this is one animation that is merging with live action. So we have VFX like Avatar. A lot of movies are there where we blend 3D with live action. So that is what the connection, film industry and animation industry. So all these mediums can be connected. It's not that only 3D is getting connected, digital 2D, traditional 2D, even traditional 3D, all these can be connected with live action to create the final out. It's all about blending all these things together. So these are all live action where this character that you see, right? The dragon is basically a 3D animated one, and there are other characters interacting with it. So the scope of 3D, scope of this, our digital 3D is vast because of the current, because 3D is more sorted for, because it can connect to the audience better when, and the amount of realism that you can create through this is much more stronger. So what happens is it connects more, the believability of these characters on screen with the real actual actor is going to be more high. So that's why VFX, most of the VFX movies you will be seeing, until and unless it is really stylized or requirement for the story, or maybe the director's requirement, it is morely 3D is the most sorted medium for creating these kinds of creatures and characters also, sometimes in some cases characters, doubles and all the stuff. Okay. So the next video that I'm going to show is basically a working style of how 3D in 3D space, how we work. So you have a 3D space and there are different what do you say, there are lines you see on top of these characters, right? Small boxes. So these are the controls that we use to move the characters around. And on the background, you can see a reference that is used by the animator. And then you rotate it, you translate it, and it's a very, and you see on the bottom, you can see a timeline basically, and each the gray portion over here. So this is where basically a pose is set, and that is one image. Then you move to the next one, move it a little, same, the process is the same. So, but it's done inside the computer. So these are some progression reels, which I used to admire a lot. So this is from a movie called Horton Hears a Who. So this is how we, as an animator, I would be receiving a file basically, is that with all the characters either in very basic poses or no movement at all. From there, we'll be getting into blocking, moving them a little, then getting the idea approach from the director, and then slowly it starts progressing. There'll be corrections, feedbacks on it, how the action needs to be modified and all those stuff. And then all together, after all the other departments put their magic into it, this is how the final output looks. But the one that you saw earlier is how I'll be basically working on a shot. This is motion capture. It's just I won't say that this is away from 3D, but still it is digital 3D, because here the animators do have a very the role of an animator is more less than how it is on a full-fledged 3D, but because the performances are completely done by actors, performance actors basically do it. So what you see here is basically they capture the live performance onto a computer as a data, and then they connect this data onto the CG character. CG character is a 3D character that you see on the left. So they connect the data. So all these small pointers that you see on the face is, and this camera is what is actually it's actually capturing the way these dots are moving, and these dots would basically refer to dots on the characters also. So basically this movement that is captured, the data that is getting captured, is then translated into the character. Although animators play a role in this, it is maybe they don't interfere much in the creative or the performance level in that shot, but till technical part, animators are needed. There are a lot of, it is technical, like what happened now. Our presentation stops frequently, so there are a lot of places where these data might not be very clean. You might be seeing things popping around and all those stuff. So there are animators needed to basically clean this up. This medium is highly used in feature films where you need realistic acting for a CG character with a real live character and a CG character, but you need realism acting in it. So at that point, they resort to motion capture because it is more faster to do, and also you can get the performance if there is some character that you want to associate the CG character to, maybe a live performance. So the pure performance or attitude of that character can be added into this through motion capture. So that's why they use this a lot. Games is another place where you can actually see a lot of use of motion capture. So this is a full-fledged animation movie that you're seeing, but it's still Tom Hanks had produced it, and he has done the performance for those characters. So Pirates of the Caribbean. This is from the Hulk. Yeah. So yes, is it clear till now, or am I going too fast?
I think things are clear, but a few people have had to leave us, so.
Yes, cool. So great. So again, there's one more topic in types of animation that I want to touch before I get into my next fundamentals of animation. Okay, so the types of animation is basically, the last one is going to be motion graphics. Motion graphics, although it's the principles and all is the same. We have all the principles of animation in this also, but still motion graphics, I wanted to keep it as a separate one because the way if you take it as a career, how you will be as an animator. I'm a character animator. I might not be good at motion graphics when I get into it, because the skill sets and the ideas or the expertise you need for that is a little bit different. The sense of movement, how things move, how things reshape is a little bit different. So but still, it's not that you cannot do it, but I wanted to keep it as a separate topic. So in motion graphics also, 2D, 3D, everything is there. We have 2D flat motion graphics and 3D motion graphics. So quick video on that. So it's basically you're playing around with shapes, lines in 2D, text, and then in 3D you will be working on 3D characters also, but maybe it's not completely rigged or anything like that. It might be basic 3D shapes, you move it around. So there are a lot of softwares that support motion graphics nowadays. This is a little bit different from what we were seeing earlier. From the point is that it's highly used in explainer videos right nowadays, explainer videos, corporate videos, where they want to convey a message. If there is a story coming in, or if there is something that you want to, it's not that it cannot be done. It is still not sorted out much when compared to 3D or any other medium that we look at. So that is one reason why I said motion graphics as well. But still, this also needs all the qualities of an animator. It's nowhere lower than what animation is. The it's about how quickly you convey information to people through these small images and their animations, how you lead them into different areas. Okay, so that's about motion graphics. I'll be quickly going into the next topics because we are running out of time. Cool. So from motion graphics, the next topic I'm jumping is into the main thing is principles of animation. So principles of animation. Now it's more technical. It is purely for animators. Okay, so types of animation, everything is over. So principles of this. I'm going to just. It's a lot of things in this, and it's a very vast topic. It takes actually years to master a lot of these principles also. So if you ask me in 15 years time what I'm doing right now, I'm still learning. I'm still learning. Every single project that I work, every shot that I work is something where I learn something new from these principles. But the idea or the concept is the same. It's just you're mixing it in different ways to create new things. So there's a never ending learning in this principles. You can debate on it. You can never master this. It's always changing. You'll be learning new things. So principles of animation basically is something that is a guideline for animators, and it is theory, and I'm not going to be taking it as a theory class or anything like that. I'm just going to be touching on all these things. If you look at the internet content, whatever you see, there are a lot of debates on different principles of animation. Some say it's 12, some say it's 21. So it doesn't matter how many it is, but the major 12 principles that we all as animators, we all kind of always try to connect to is the 12 principles that you see on screen. Okay, and these were actually developed by the Walt Disney Studios, the 9 old men in Walt Disney Studios. They're called the 9 old men. In The Illusion of Life, there's a book that Disney had come out with, these 9 old men. So these people started making animation accessible to everyone. Okay, and apart from that, there are other books also, like my basic any animator's basic guideline or Bible in the initial days would be this what do you say, cartoon animation by Preston Blair. That is one book that I had checked a lot. And the other one would be the Animator Survival Kit by Richard Williams. So these books and Illusion of Life, these 3 books would be like your whole learning, from where you get all the learnings of the foundation. So the Walt Disney Studios came up with these 12 principles basically to make this accessible to every single person who wants to maybe pursue this as a career. So you need a set of rules where you can always go do a checkpoint. Okay, these are the things that I need. So based on that, these are the basic 12 principles that is connected with animation. Any motion that you're doing, these will be the 12 principles that will be connected with it. How much this is going to be influencing your animation depends upon your style of the show, your type. It's not necessary that all the 12 principles will be there every time, or maybe some of them might be there, some of them can be very subtle, some might be too much, some might be less. So there is a mixture of all these things, but these are the ingredients of proper animation. So these ingredients, how much you're going to use is your decision as an animator. So the 12 principles basically are squash and stretch, anticipation, staging, straight ahead, post to post, follow through, overlapping action, slow in, slow out, arc, secondary animation, secondary action, timing, spacing, exaggeration, solid drawing, and appeal. And to be frank, if you ask me, suddenly you go ask me 12 principles, I'm not. So don't by heart this as your this thing or anything. If you ask me 12 principles in that, I won't be able to tell you even at a go. So, but these are things that you gain, you will start feeling it. When you're animating, you'll know that, okay, something is not working. What is not working? This is not working. So that is how it is. So these are the 12 principles. So I'll start off with squash and stretch. Squash and stretch, and I'm not going to go as a line of these things. I'm going to be taking it in a way that I can connect one to the other. Okay, so that is how I'm going to be taking it. So excuse me. Squash and stretch. So squash and stretch basically is that anything that is a normal shape will have a squash, will have a stretch. Okay, so squash is basically compressing it, and stretch is basically elongating it. So how why we are using squash and stretch is basically to give more appeal to that particular action, or give more realism or more dynamic movement to that action. So it's basically changing the form of the actual mass. I'm connecting it to mass is the overall object that is being modified to create a little bit more interesting movement, or in more dynamic movement. Okay, the amount of this squash and stretch highly depends upon what kind of style you're using, or is it going to be too cartoon? A squash in a what do you say? A squash in a Tom and Jerry cartoon and a squash in a Disney movie is different. It's the amount of squash is different. So that is highly connected to how your animation and what level you want to take it to. Take it in the terms of style. Okay. So this is a very small example of two balls that are moving from screen left to screen right. Okay, so the one on the top does not have any squash and stretch in it, though it has movement in it. It's moving at the same time. Though it has movement in it, it doesn't have any squash or stretch in it. So, but the one on the bottom, there is a little bit of squash and stretch in it. If you look at both these movement, what you can see is that the one that is on the bottom gives a little bit more texture onto your movement. The one on the top, although it does have animation in it, it is still a little bit rigid. Okay, but the one on the bottom is still a little bit more interesting to look at, or it gives a more texture onto it. So that is the reason we add squash and stretch to your work. So the amount of it, like I told you, is controlled by the style of animation, plus the amount of squash and stretch is also connected with the speed in which your object is moving, plus the weight of that object, how much heavy it is, or to what contact it is. Maybe it is falling on a floor, or maybe it is falling on a carpet or on a cloth that is hanging. So all that matters a lot in defining how much squash and stretch is needed for that object. Okay, so it is not necessary that every place you go and put squash and stretch. It's that's the animator's ability to control that, or to understand that, and that comes through experience. The more work you do, the more type of work you do, you will understand that. The next slide that I want to show you is when you look at I'll just when you look at characters, the same concept like over here. Sorry, yeah, over here. So if you see that here a ball is just bouncing, but the amount of squash is getting decreased each time the bounce is happening. The stretch and squash gets decreased because the force now starts as the ball is bouncing, the force is now reducing. So the amount of squash and stretch needed in that is squash. So these are all related to how much you are going to use squash and stretch in your the speed, the type, the material in which that object is, the speed of the object, the weight of the object, and also the intensity of the movement. All these factors actually will let you decide how much squash and stretch is needed for that particular movement. Okay, so here you can see a small clip, but a small video of how this squash and stretch is actually being used in the how that concept of from a ball is being translated into characters. So if you see a frog is jumping, a frog is stretching here, it's going to a squash and then jumps back. Same way a character is jumping, he is stretching here, squashing here, and stretches back and then jumps onto the pool. This is how these are all the same principle that is being applied onto movement. So every movement you have will have somewhere or at some point there'll be a squash and stretch in it. Any movement it is. We'll refer to that in a video later, but everything will have squash and stretch in it. Similarly, if you look at the facials also, you see the face stretch and face squash. So when you talk normally as a human being, your stretch and squash, your face doesn't deform a lot, but there is stretch and squash. When you open your mouth, there is a stretch in it, and when you do this, there is a squash in it. So this is what we call a stretch and squash. So it doesn't apply to just a whole character. It can apply to small segments of your face. It could be your face alone, maybe it could be just your body, or it could be the whole body that moving based on the action it can happen. Okay, so we have stretch, squash in almost every single movement depending upon that action. Okay, and it's not necessary. I wanted to show this specifically because that doesn't, most of them connect it only to the ball, and that bouncing ball or whatever you have seen is the basic foundation of any kind of movement. If you master that, you will be able to understand all the other kinds of movement much easier. Okay, so the next principle that I want to talk about is anticipation. So in this, you see the ball on the left does not have any anticipation on it. It's just very, very same shape. It just moves up and comes down, although the timing and everything is the same. But on the same time, on the right, you can see the ball actually taking an anticipation. Anticipation is basically um, any action requires a little bit force before it starts. It needs a little bit force. So that is basically called as an anticipation. And that anticipation mostly will be, I'm saying the word mostly because when I learned, it was when they said every action will have an anticipation reverse. But now through different shows, I'm learning it doesn't need to be exactly opposite. So anticipation mostly will be opposite to whatever direction that action is going to happen. So if you're gonna travel forward, you're gonna take an antic and then you're gonna push forward. So that is what, and that moving back is where the anticipation is. So in this scenario, you can see that the ball on the right actually is taking an anticipation down before it starts to move. It's pushing itself down, so that what happens is anticipation helps you to drive the audience to a moment that you want to actually make. You can drive the audience to that action that you really want them to watch. So that helps, anticipation helps in that way a lot. So for example, this one single drawing can tell you that this character is going to run to the screen right, because of the anticipation pose that it has towards the opposite side. Okay, you can see anticipation in almost every single even you would be anticipating right now. If you want to get up, you will be anticipating the way when you're getting up, you move down and push yourself up. So that moving down is an anticipation. Okay. Now here are some examples, basically live. So just to let you know, I think you might have already understood what anticipation is, but just to let you know what so you can see this guy actually taking an anticipation before the throw. Over here, the force is being pushed here, and then he starts throwing. The same way, if you take the go here, this would be the anticipation where he's taking the whole down, and then so this basically is helping. Looking at this, I can say that this guy is gonna hit the golf ball, or this guy is gonna throw the baseball. That's what I basically am understanding. Now again, I'm going to bring you back to this image that we saw during squash and stretch. So this is where everything starts a little bit thing. So most of the beginners always get into trouble in looking at these principles as separate things, right? These 12 principles doesn't mean that they are separate. They can be combined also. Sometimes a squash can be an anticipation, and sometimes a stretch can be a different what do you say, a stretch can be also an anticipation. In some cases, a stretch can be an anticipation. So in this image, right, earlier I used this image to explain what a squash is. Basically, a character is going down, it's squashing here and it's going out. Same way, this character is going down and it's squashing. But if I'm talking about anticipation, this squash over here, I can take it as an anticipation, because this character is moving on the opposite direction. He's a very heavy character. He's gonna need force from where he's going to push himself up. So that particular squash is gonna work as an anticipation. Okay, so it is not necessary that these principles are separate topics. Don't look at it as a separate 12 principles, and always try to understand the motion first. If you observe a lot, you will be able to understand these motions. So there you will be able to realize these principles. Some of them are clubbed together, some of them might be separate. In some scenarios, the one principle might be the same principle also. So that's how you have to. So don't get stuck with the concept of the naming of these things. It's more about creating that feel out of these 12 principles. That is the whole point of animation, creating that feel out of this principle. It's not literally you put that there. That's why I wanted to show you. So moving forward, you'll be seeing other images also. I might bring back these images to explain the same topic, but hope you understood what I'm trying to get to. The next principle that I'm going to talk about is follow through and overlapping action. So follow through and overlapping action. Here, if you see that you have a dangling 3 joints over here, And this is basically called a pendulum. These are all exercises that you basics and during basics we'll be covering. So you have a disc on top of it, which is actually the primary thing that is moving. And these are three joints that are connected to it. So when these joints, though they are connected to that, it doesn't have a separate ability to move. That's what I am assuming for this particular thing. It doesn't have a separate ability to move. So this is highly connected to how the overall pendulum or overall disc works, or how the disc is moving to the left and the right. So it's gonna be driving that movement of the loose joints that are there on the bottom. So that's what creates an follow through and an overlapping action. So if you see that the way it is dragging each time when it's going left and right, the drag is basically a follow through. And then as it is settling, when you go to a drag, when it changes direction, it starts to overlap. The inertia of that object would still continue on continue, and then it will take you to an overlap, and then again back to a follow through. And as it is stopping, the overall movement is settling down. That's again is an overlap. So it moves. The inertia doesn't change as easily as your primary thing. The inertia of a moment, inertia basically is the force in which you're traveling. Best example is when you're traveling in a bus. When the bus suddenly breaks, there is a movement that is happening when you're traveling, right? There is an inertia, there is a force that is actually along with the primary object, which is the bus, and you're on top of it. The bus is moving. There is a force that is being applied onto it. So when the bus suddenly stops, you tend to go forward, right? So this is what is called as inertia. Inertia is also, again, the basic thing that creates feel or adds spice onto your animation. So how you're controlling that, how you're going to move that and work with that or mix these things is what matters a lot. So in this case, I told you this particular pendulum, I assume that these three joints are loose. Okay, so it doesn't mean that every time follow through will happen only with things which are very loose. It can be with a character, like in this case, you have a squirrel tail. It is connected, but still it has the ability to move itself, right? But still, when the squirrel is jumping, it will try to use the tail to follow that particular action. So there is a follow through. And after that, you can see that as the character is moving, you see the arc over here, the way in which the character, the drawings are moving. And from there, you have something where it is stopping and you have the tail actually going back and then settling back. So this movement is basically an overlap over there. Okay. Now we talked about something which has control, like a dog's tail can be an example. This can be an example. Our hands can be an example. When you walk, although you can move your hand around, when you walk, your primary movement is your hip. Your hip is moving forward. Your chest is moving along with it. And your hand from the shoulder right down, it is gonna drag. So there is a follow through in it. So the way your chest is moving is the way your hand is gonna move. So there is a follow through. Okay. And one other example is where this coat is. Now you see the coat over here is actually dragging as the character is moving. It's another property that is on top of a character, right? So it doesn't mean that it doesn't have life. Basically, it's moving just because it is on top of the primary object that is moving. So the character is turning. When it is stopping, the inertia is going to make the what do you say, the coat to come forward, the edges, the tip of the coat to come forward and then settle back. So this settling back, again, this is a follow through, this is an overshoot, and this is a settle. Okay, so overshoot or overlap. Okay, and this will be a settle. Similarly, on a head turn, now we talked about secondary things that are connected to the body, right? That are connected to the body. And then we are talking about here on the bottom, you see this this one, right? So here, this is actually a dog which has a very, the bulldog, right? It has a very fluffy. So just to exaggerate it also, but still you can see that you have a drag here, you have a follow through here. It loosens and it goes out and then comes back. So follow through overlapping action doesn't stop with something called a pendulum or three joints. Okay, that is just for understanding that is how this movement works. where it is going to get applied is where your talent or your ability to observe comes. You can these things is what is actually going to put more flavor into your work. Okay, next one is slow in and slow out. So slow in, slow out, any action that starts will have a slow in, slow out, and which is going to stop will have a slow in. Okay, slow out is basically anything that is moving out, it slows and goes out, and here it is going to come into a slow stop, which is a slow in. Okay, and any movement that you see will have this in it. Okay, this is very important because we all have some mass and weight in us, and it is not just only robots. Maybe robots can move without any requirement of slow in or slow outs, but anything that has a mass and that has we take time to actually build energy and move. So that energy building is what is happening in a slow out. And once the energy is built, this energy has to, when it is stopping, this energy has to come to a stop. Like I told you, inertia, right? That inertia, that coming to a stop is actually also going to be slow. It cannot just stop at one frame unless and until it's hitting something or hitting a wall or something. It does not stop. But that energy to stop is also required. So that is what slow in and slow out basically means. So in this example, you can see that the ball is starting slow. You can see the way the ball is accelerating in this area and then slowing into this point. The next topic over here, again, slow in, slow out. It's just explaining about how these movements are, how closely these are connected. Okay. Again, another example is a pendulum. You can see that the pendulum has a most faster movement at the bottom while it slows at the two edges. Okay. From here, I'm going to jump into timing. I'm going very fast now because I'm just looking at the time. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So this different timing alone is you're able to see the urgency. If I say that these three characters that are moving, I can say that the one moving on the top is very urgent. He wants to go fast, and the second one is still relaxed moving. So this timing can help in defining the overall aesthetics of a shot. Okay. Again, it's got stuck.
Maybe not use the full screen mode.
Yeah. So that will help. This timing will help in defining sometimes the nature of that character or the characteristics. All those things can be done through timing. Like if it is a very fast character or if it's very slow, maybe a fat or character or lean character. So like that we can. So timing is basically just remember. You don't have to remember any exercises or anything. Just remember from point A to point B, how much time does it take for an object to reach or a character to reach? That's all about timing. But if you look at spacing, here both these animations are happening at the same number of frames. It's like 18 frames. 18 frames is what I've used for this, but both the animations are happening at the 18 frames, but you still see a difference in the overall way that each of these characters are moving. So this is what we call as spacing. So spacing is basically from A to B. How is this object going to move? That is what spacing is all about. Timing is how much time does it take from A to B. It can be 10 frames, 15 frames, 20 frames. But if an action is in 20 frames, how is that action moving within that 20 frames? That also can define how your character personalities and all those stuff. That's another principle that you put into. So that particular concept is called spacing. So here I have kept more slow out and less slow in. Here I have kept more less slow out and more slow in. So that itself is changing the overall aesthetics of that moment. But both are of the same frame. So timing, A to B, how does it reach? How much time does it take to reach? And spacing, how that in a particular set of frames, how you're going to space. Spacing is where in screen space, where is your object? So that is why it's called spacing. So where is your object spaced in the screen space? So that spacing will define that. Okay. So the next one So here you have another example where this is a linear timing. It's all 18 frames. Okay, it's all 18 frames. This is linear. The one on the bottom is the example that I showed you earlier in slow in, slow out. And the one that I've shown you right now is a little bit more excess. So the spacing changes alone will give you a lot of what do you say, changes onto your animation. So based on your action and all the stuff, you can do changes onto it. The next one I want to show you is basically an image how this is a very evenly spaced. We call it evenly spaced in animation, that everything moves at the almost, so you won't have any feel to it. You will see the movement, but you won't feel for it. But here on the right side, you can see the drawings that these are all more slow in, slow outs, and you can see the space increasing. So here it's going to be slow. It's going to gain momentum here, speed here, and then it's going to slow out, slow into this particular pose. So that is the basic idea. The next one is staging. Staging is basically what you call staging is just like how you compose something. So you're doing a visual medium. You're going to say something through your frame. You're going to be talking through your frame. So there is always a requirement of how you're going to place this character, because your frame is going to speak basically what you're trying to communicate. So how you're going to place these characters in your screen space, how you're going to post them in your screen space, and whether all these is connected to the proper story is what matters a lot. Okay, so here if you see in this screen, this character on the left screen, the character is looking back. Okay, and there is somebody here. This is a very blunt staging. Okay, I know I cannot see the difference in the overall what you say aesthetics of that action. I see that character is looking back, there is somebody back, but I don't see a depth in it. So if I can just change the camera angle a little bit here, maybe even I can try to give a little bit perspective over here, it will automatically change the overall the frame itself will start telling a story, right? So staging is basically like what the name suggests. In the earlier days, there was a physical stage where actors used to perform. So there is a what do you say, virtual boundary within which all the actions happen. So the actors try to keep around that, and they are more expressive because of the audience that are very far away. There might be people sitting, so they're very expressive in the way they exaggerate themselves when they when they perform, and the same way they move from point to point, driving the audience to whatever action is happening. If there is an action, they don't just stand there and they do a heavy action there. They would move to the opposite side of the stage and then gradually build the action anticipation and bring. So the basic concept is the same. Only thing is that there they used to do it on an open stage. Here we have a frame into which we have to construct all these things. It not only matters about camera, it matters about how you pose the characters also. So for example, here you can see that the image on the top over here, here you can see that this character is clearly eating an ice cream because of the silhouette. Okay, the silhouette is this dark image which you see. That silhouette is basically has to be very clean so that you can understand what kind of action is happening. Similarly, on the bottom, it's not considered as a good staging or good posing. It can affect the staging also. It's literally it's a pose. It can affect the staging also. So you see that it's, although we can see that it is eating an ice cream, you don't see it when it is a silhouette. So in animation, we try to keep these silhouettes very clean as possible, especially when we make the major poses, so that it is it communicates properly, and also it adds on to the overall composition of the shot. In the other one, you can see Spider-Man moving. You have all these elements and the poses, everything driving. You can see where actually it's staged in a way that we see that it's going to exit from one point. Similarly, we have other examples in Ratatouille where we have this is called the rule of third. Basically, this is what we use for in camera also. You have seen rule of third, this small grid coming up. So these 4 pink points are basically points where we see interest. where interest is always there. People, when you frame something, you always try to keep them in those areas so that your eyes actually don't drive to the center of any frame. It's actually your interest points, your eyes tend to move either to the left or to the right. So where you place these characters depends upon these 4 points. If you compose them within that area, considering that is going to help a lot. Then again, on the bottom, you have strong posing. Strong posing, proposing to this girl. You can see, you can write from this composition itself, you can understand what is happening and what she's gonna be saying. So this is a very good example of how you can stage. This other example is all these people looking at driving, all this look is driving to this lady, but this lady is not kept in the center, but more towards the screen right, so that you can drive. You can see that if, as the surrounding people are looking to the lady, your as an audience, your mind also takes yourself. So when you're composing things, when you're placing things in your scene, when you're doing action, especially although you get a layout, you get the things placed, but when you're communicating it through animation, you have to make sure that your actions is all actually doing justice to that story point, or is telling what is to be told in that shot. So that's where the staging matters a lot, where you're going to keep your hand, or if you're going to talk to somebody, how are you going to face them? All these things matters a lot. Okay. The next one is a secondary action. So this is going to be a very debated topic, but this is whatever I understood, or what I believe as a secondary action. This is what I'm basically talking about. It's not so there are a lot of places which has different meanings of secondary actions. For me, secondary action, always I consider secondary action as an additional action. Okay, additional action which would add value or detailing into a story point. For example, if you see this in the left, you can see that the character is angry. No, I'm not angry at you. She's definitely angry, but she's trying to show that she's not angry at the person. So she's just, and you were just using the expression, no, I'm not angry at you. So it's a sarcastic way of saying that I am angry at you, but so that's what is being shown in the left. The same action on the right, you can see that I'm not angry at you. But she's still chopping with the angry chop. She's chopping the onions fast. So that is a secondary action that you're going to add into that particular. I know a lot of places you might have studied also that secondary actions are things that move along with the character and stuff, but that again can be connected with follow through. I told you, right? It's all the same principles moving around. So follow through and overlapping action, you can always take it as like tail moving along with it, hair flowing along with that, can be connected. In some places you can also read that secondary actions are like what do you say, a cap when you're moving, maybe your dress moving along with you, flowing along with you, that's a secondary action and all the stuff. So but for me, I always consider that as more or less connected. That's needed for that animation. It's primary movement. It's the second that follow through needs to be happen because it is connected with the main object. Secondary action is adding detail into your shot. More details you can add into your shot. So here, this one image is actually the right one makes the shot more interesting, because that's the sarcasm and the sarcasm that you have in the first image, and the one on the right one has more sarcasm. So that's how you make things more. For example, this one example, a character sitting down. Here on the right, you have a character sitting down. Both are same actions. Okay, but you can see that the one on the right is more interesting, and then although all the principles, everything is fine. On the left, the animation is great, but that small addition of detail of him pushing it and making some corrections is giving more interest into that. Okay, so secondary action, for example, in a dog, if you take a dog or a squirrel, a dog, I'll tell you, if a dog is running, a tail following the dog can be part of follow through, because the tail has to follow with the primary, it is connected with the body. But a secondary is that if a dog is moving and then slowing down and it's wagging its tail, now that becomes additional small element into it. So you start to emote through their character. So that will be a secondary action. So I always consider secondary action are additional small nuances that you can add onto your main shot to give more interest into it. Okay. So from there, I want to take you to arcs. Okay. arcs are something that is there all around you, all around you. Everything you do is gonna be in an arc. There is nothing that is linear until and unless you're a robot. Okay, everything that you're moving, you can see it in you're sitting there, you try to reach to something, you will always have an arc in it, and that is something very important in our principles also. So if you take a human body, the hand moves in an arc. Basically, you cannot shorten the hand if you want to move it straight. Okay, and the major things people struggle with 3D is that arcs, because in 3D space, getting the arcs is very important. If you, unless and until you don't get the arcs right, you won't be able to give a very convincing or believable action. Animation is fine. Believability is what animation, addition to animation, making things move, believability is what is very important. You have to make things very believable to people, and people should be able to connect to it. So these principles are highly connected to creating that believability. In that, arc is again one important thing that normally people struggle. So if you see here, like I told you, when the character is moving forward, you have the arc, the hand is moving straight and then it's following. So you have the wrist, you have the arc, elbows, you have the arc. Even if you look at the pendulum, you have an arc in the pendulum, the way it moves, right? So you can see all these examples, the way the hand is moving from left to right and the way the legs are actually pushing and again coming back. So all these things have arcs in them. So uh, if you look at your body when you're moving, this next small clip will help you understand. This lady is just jumping, but you can see the arcs that it is taking. In a walk, you can see how the arc in the leg and the hands are working. So everything moves in arcs. The moment you start to clean arcs and add arcs onto your animation, automatically you can see that your animation starts to get better and better. And these principles are something you cannot master in a day or two, that's for sure. Not even after your course, or maybe you get into animation, you start taking joined a studio, you started working. It is over a span of years working in shows. You need the patience to slowly develop these things through seeing others working on different styles. You'll start developing these things one by one. Okay. Next one that I'm going to take you is exaggeration. This is going to be a very quick topic in exaggeration, because I just kept 3 images in this. Exaggeration is basically, in animation, you try to exaggerate because it's not a realistic animation, realistic work that you're doing. So you try to exaggerate. The level of exaggeration that you need on your shot is highly dependent on the style of the show. Here I'm showing Tom and Jerry because it's a highly cartoony show where everything is exaggerated, eyes popping out. You have seen the Looney Tunes show, you have seen what do you say, Mickey Mouse and all those. It's highly exaggerated. At the same time, you can see more subtle animation in like the Sea Beast and all these movies. You have more subtle animation. So that also helps a lot in understanding exaggeration. Okay, so I'll get to this through a video later, but let me jump into the next one. Straight ahead and pose to pose. So straight ahead and pose, I kept it to the last. The main reason is these are 2 approaches to animation. Okay, straight ahead and pose to pose. Straight ahead animation is basically what you see here, is that you go very smooth. From one point you start animating, you do the next frame, you do the next frame, just like how stop motion is done. Stop motion is highly straight ahead. You cannot do pose to pose in stop motion because it is in a 3D space, overall open space, and you have to continue animating and going. So what happens in the fluidity and fluidity of this animation is very high, and it's very spontaneous. You can keep adding things spontaneously and going. Whereas in pose to pose, what happens is it has more clarity. When you have to work within a particular duration, and we have to set things up within the duration, and you have defined frames for it, you would prefer pose to pose because you know that you need a start point and an end point. It has to reach at this point. So how to reach that? It is very difficult. When you go straight, you might overdo things and you might take it more longer when straight ahead. But in pose to pose, it is easier to plan, it's easier to control. But both of them have their advantages and disadvantages. Like for straight ahead, mostly you keep doing and you will never know where it reaches until and it goes. But as you will be making it clear. The clarity will be there on the go only. You cannot you will never be able to judge where it is going to reach by the end. But in post to post, you have this ability to define where your animation is going or how your animation is going. Got it? You'll be able to say that, okay, this is where I start, this is where I end. Okay, this is where in this point I want the character to be. So that those kinds of control is more. But the what do you say, the disadvantage is that sometimes what happens is you will have to play around, and it is a more structured and academic way of doing it. And sometimes you lose the fluidity on, you don't try to, sometimes what happens, some ideas that you can put it that in straight ahead you have the spontaneously you comes in might not be there in post to post. And getting post to post to work very smoothly is also very difficult. It's not very easy, just like straight ahead. Okay. But in animation, in 3D space, what we basically do is a hybrid. We use post to post and straight ahead. All these advantages together we take and we approach animation. So we start off with post to post and gradually move on to straight ahead after a particular point, so that we have more control as well as more free flowing and spontaneous animation along with it. Okay. The next topic that I wanted to touch is solid drawing and posing. So, okay, solid drawing is what we say in 2D, but I would like to call it as a solid posing. Posing is very important in 3D because it basically tells you where your character is, and how your character is basically the energy, and the pose itself will be able to tell you what your character is going to do. Here you can see that on the left you have some examples where you have the character pointing, and on the right they have just made it a little bit more exaggerated, pushed forward, and contrasting poses are there, and that one change alone has given more stronger communication of that pose. That pose is able to tell you about that character more than what it is there in the left pose. Okay, so posing is very important because these poses and silhouette, when you're looking at poses, you have to think about silhouette, how it like earlier during staging we talked about, right, the character's position. You have, if you're going to drink water like this is a very bad silhouette, because I'm drinking because just because light and everything is there, you're able to see that I've kept my hand here. But if I'm going to pose it like this on a maybe 3/4 or something, it gives more clarity. You can see the hand, the shape and everything. So that defines silhouette. So silhouette is very important when you're doing posing, and we tend to keep silhouettes very clean in every pose, single pose, key poses, at least whatever we do, the main poses that we do, we try to in straight ahead pose to pose. I told you, right, that the key poses, main poses that we define. So we try to keep these silhouettes clean in all these poses as we do, so that we give more clarity to what the action is. Basically, if you put it in a dark patch, you should be able to tell what the character is doing. Okay, so that is what solid drawing and posing is about. The next is appeal. Along with posing, I'm going to talk about appeal. The posing is about how you are going to keep the pose and you're going to tell. Appeal is about this. These poses need to give you the characteristics. If there is, if you have each character on the left and the right, both characters have their own uniqueness, right? They all are posed in a way, but even though they are posed in that way, the expressions alone can tell you about these characters a bit. So that's what creating an appeal is basically. So not only in the post has to be appealing. So just strong posing will not work. Strong posing with an appeal to that storyline. The character has to come out through it. If it is a fat character, it should feel as a fat character. Maybe you are posted right, but it has to feel like how a fat character is doing. That is what is called as appeal. So that appeal is very important in animation, because especially when you're telling a story, if all your characters look alike or move alike, then there is no point. You won't be able to identify stuff. You're able to look at characters, identify them because of their small mannerisms or small attitude that they have. So that is something that we really need to look at, and that is what appeal actually creates onto your overall scene. So appeal is not only limited to poses, it is an overall concept on how that shot, when you get a shot, as there is a shot of a character actually drinking tea, what the character is thinking about. or is she or he drinking the tea angrily, or is it very what do you say, sad or something. So that thing has to reveal in your animation. So the pose itself will start to change based on your overall story. Story is the king. So that point is there. So that story will automatically drive. And when you look at that particular frame, you should be able to tell that this is what my character is thinking about. So that is what appeal is all about. Okay. So this small video here is a fun character study that you have seen Big Hero 6, I guess. So all the characters, they have done a character study. It's the animation is the same. A character is walking in and sitting in a chair. But this is what appeal I am talking about. That each character you can identify with their mannerisms, how it is entering and moving. It has all the principles that we talked about right now. It is there in this, the timing, the spacing, how they have modified the timing, how they are spacing things around to add all these principles together, blend in to create the performance. Got it? So each character coming in and sitting is able, that alone is able to tell you what that character is all about, how that character might be going to be in the movie, and the attitude of that character. So this will help in developing the overall scene, right? So when we had all these characters are there in the screen, each one of them will have their own mannerisms. The timing, spacing of this particular action, you can see that change based on the height, weight, attitude, and all those things. All these principles are mixed. Okay, I'm just going to skip. Yeah. So all you can see that one last small action about a character coming, entering and sitting, it has utilized all these principles. Squash, stretch, you can see squash and stretch based on the character size. Like Baymax has a different way of how it is moving. You can see how Baymax is going to move. It's a little bit robotic. The timing spacing is different for that, how it is moving. Similarly, each of these characters, the time it takes to move from that point to this point, and the spacing in which each of these action, the hand moving up, and then all these things are combining together, and this is how you come up with good animations. Okay, so the end thing is that don't go behind principles. Don't if you are a beginner, always this happens is that you want to put everything into your shot. You want to put all the principles. Oh, I forgot this principle. It's not about that. It's about creating the feeling. It's a feeling that you're going to create. The audience has to feel along with you. So to create that feeling, we have to use these ingredients. How much you're going to use that into each of the shot is a skill that you're going to develop as an animator moving forward, as you work and you work on different shows. That is a skill set that you keep learning. I'm still learning that even after 15 years. If you ask me, have I learned animation? I'm still learning because every single show that I work on has something new that is to offer me in terms of all these principles that we are talking about. There are a lot of new things that are being developed, a lot of new stylizations that are being developed. All these are developed based out of these 12 things, mixing these things around, and then creating new things. So take principles as what you say, as something that you have to look into in every shot, but always use the ability to use that is the talent that an animator, a good animator will have the best sense of how to use these elements and then create his work. So that's what makes the animation stand out. When you put 10 people around, somebody is having an amazing animation, that guy's sense of using these principles is more appropriate. That's what I would say. Okay, so this this basically you can just have a look. It's basically some basic exercises that I thought before you even start getting into all complicated shots. If you are animation people who are coming out of institutes and you're doing a demo reel, don't go for a very complicated shot. Don't take it up something that is too, because it's something that more than you can chew. First, you understand the basics. I would say that if you understand the ball bouncing that you have learned, ball bouncing and the pendulum, that is more than enough for you to solve almost everything in animation, because every single thing is will be moving around this particular concept. So mastering that is more important. The basic thing is more important. Then understanding how you can implement it is more important. Okay. So that will do with the session as a whole. I know I speeded up a little bit in the end because of the time. I'm looking at the clock always because it's a very big topic, and if I start talking, I keep talking. I hope the principles were clear enough for you guys. Whatever I wanted to discuss, I have already told. So from here, I would like to talk about career. What kind of a career? This is what everybody is waiting to. I know everybody is waiting to understand whether it is good or whether it is bad to get into animation. So personally, if you ask me, I had a very good time in animation, although it's not been a very smooth ride right from the day I joined till then. It's not going to be a very smooth ride. There is no profession that is like that. Especially we are in a very competitive profession where our skill demands a lot. Our skill, how we are going to present ourselves, matter a lot. So there is always a constant requirement of updating yourself in this industry. And you have to make sure that coming into the industry is, because I told you I had mentored students for almost 1.5 years in an institute in Delhi. So there I could see that out of the students that came in, there were very few people who wanted to retain back, because they lose patience. You need really hardcore patience to be in this industry, and passion to be in this industry. You need a passion towards this animation. Don't opt this just for the sake of thinking that, okay, somebody told me that this is a really fun place to be, or this office you're going to be animating, there's nothing very, it's a very competitive industry, and it is not easy also. You have to constantly, I told you, right, after 15 years, if you ask me, I'm sometimes amazed by the kind of work the entry level animators are doing right now. I learn from them also. So it doesn't, experience alone doesn't matter a lot. You have to constantly keep pushing yourself till you're there in this industry, and you cannot stop that at any point, because the level that industry is advancing and the level that you need to get in line with that. Okay, so that is how the animation industry is. For a career perspective, I would always say that if you're looking into getting into animation, for example, if you are a student in 10th or 11th standard or 12th standard, or maybe you did a graduation, you're planning to get into animation. For if you're into your schooling right now, I would say that, and you really want to get into this industry, animation, do some research and what this industry is about, and all those other things, how, and see whether you really would like to get into this industry. Once that is done, try to look for courses that will support you in this industry rather than just randomly going and doing anything. Try to get into courses that will support you. Do a graduation that might be connected to animation. Nowadays there are a lot of graduation that is connected to animation. You have BSc animation itself available, or MSc in animation is available. So I would suggest that you do something that is more related. Doing BSc animation is not bad, it's very good. It's already you are pointing it in the right way. But for me, what I experienced from my personal, because I didn't have BSc animation at that time when I was doing my course. My only way of doing a graduation was either to find something, and very limited choices were there. So for me, visual communication has always, I did a visual communication, I told you, has been always a very big boon, because I first understood what media is, what film is, how does that work, what are the aesthetics of film, what are stories. We used to have all these practical sessions of making small video clips, and how radio, how does it work. I could learn about print media, I could learn about radio, I could learn about television and film, all these things. So my understanding of media was I was able to understand that better, because before I joined my college, I had zero knowledge about how films are made. I didn't know what a camera is or how camera shoot is done, or I didn't know the technicalities. But after that 3-year degree that I did on visual communication, I was able to understand these things better. And so when I joined animation, as I told you, it's highly connected to it. We had animatics, we had storyboards, we had stories, script, all these things. And so I was able to easily connect to that. And something related to media like visual communication would be a really good option to start off with a degree program, because it's not only animation that you're learning, it's about the whole media that you're learning, technicalities of these media, workarounds of these media, and all those things you're learning. You'll learn how to work with the camera, composition, and all those stuff you learn in visual communication, which will help you in staging in animation. So there are a lot of things that will get connected. So my personal suggestion is like that. But nowadays we have more focus centric courses available in animation, which is more focused to that. So you can also opt like that. You can get into a BSc animation, and you can pursue. You have 2D and all those stuffs in that also. You can do that, and then you can get into this industry after completing that. And people who are already in animation, I would suggest that there is a limit to what an educational system can teach you in terms of not only animation, anything. They can guide you on what has to be done, or how you can get to a point. That's it. But as an animator, if you're in the industry right now as a beginner, this is where your actual learning is going to start. Whatever you learned from the your academy or your this is still you have never experimented. It's just a theory you might have done in your this thing, but how does it fit into a overall production? A production environment is completely different from what you do in a demo reel or something. Like a production environment is completely different. How do you put this into a production environment is where your learning comes, and you'll start learning different styles, different shows you might be getting the chance to work. So don't stop learning. This first couple of years is where you're gonna really put your heart and soul and start understanding this medium much better, so that you can deliver more. Okay, so that is my major comment for people who are already into animation. Never stop learning, and be it any number of years, never stop learning, because the evolution, I just before this I just wanted to show you an evolution of how this is a fun comparison of the Lost World, which was released in 1925. This was done in stop motion, like I told you. From there, this is Jurassic Park 3 in 2001. We have Jurassic Park right now. You see the level that the overall the quality of work has gone up. Okay. I'm trying to compare it with almost similar shots. So here you have King Kong, which was released in 1933, again in stop motion. And there is a T-Rex and a King Kong fighting. And this is the King Kong that was released in 2005. Same T-Rex and King Kong. See the level of advancement it has in the terms of quality, believability, and all the stuff back in 2005. Okay. We are still 10 years later, we are standing. It's 1969. This came up, the Valley of Gwangi. Same kind of an animation. We have it in Jurassic Park 2. These are all still movies that I'm talking about, which the second part, which you see the good animation is from, 10 years back. The first movie, the first ones, like the black and white ones, I don't mean that they are bad. They were like when those things were coming up in theaters, people went crazy looking at these things, because that they have never seen anything like that before. But as an audience keep evolving. When audience evolves, your content also has to evolve. As content evolves, your quality of content will start evolving, and that is what you're seeing. So this 10 years back, if and dinosaur, we don't know, maybe we had Jurassic Park Jurassic World that came out. We had King Kong and Godzilla that came out. We had Lion King that came out. So the quality of work is keeps on evolving. So in another 10 years, there might be another King Kong that might come out, and you might see an entirely different quality of work in it, or entirely different style. We don't know. It keeps evolving. So audience are evolving. That is, audience are the people for whom we are doing all these things. So audience are evolving. They never get stagnant. So we should also never get stagnant. We should keep evolving ourselves in terms of quality, in terms of learning, in terms of understanding technology. The industry is not going to stop. So that is one major quality that every single animator has to have in this industry till he wants to stay in this industry. Okay. So with that note, I'm sorry that I took up so much time. I'm really sorry. Because it's a very big topic and I was trying to speed things up in between. But hope I made the session as interesting as possible. And I've conveyed my thoughts about it. There might be opinions which might be different, but still, these are things which I have learned from my career and my experience.